tell us a little bit about your inspirations along the way.
Uh, wow, how can I answer this loaded question? There's a character called Doc in the movie Back to the Future who says, I'm
Mm.
a student of all sciences, and I am a student of all sciences too.
Hello, and welcome to Sitare Spotlight. Sitare, as you know, means stars. And the theme of this spotlight is that we live amid stars. And what we'd like to know is to try and gain some perspectives and some learnings from some of our stars who shine alongside us and inspire us in different ways every day, and see if we can all learn to shine a little bit brighter each day. So, our star for today is Krishna Srinivasan. We'll try to understand his journey, what makes him shine, what are the infinities that we all can find unto ourselves, and what his sense of utopia is. And finally, welcome, Krishna.
Thank you so much, Saumya. Very happy to be here. Greetings, Vanakam, Namaste.
Krishna is an AI researcher and he works on the DeepMind team. He has published many, many papers and he remains extremely passionate about his work. He's also an avid reader, specifically, I think, the nonfiction areas, biographies and philosophies. Particularly one philosophy, which is the Bhagavad Gita. So he operates in this strange sense of time, where he works in the cutting edge of technology every day, and he gleans his wisdom and learnings from probably one of the oldest texts in the world, Bhagavad Gita. So, Krishna, today, thank you for joining us. We hope to be able to pick your mind a little bit and see how what it takes to live life as a researcher, and how we can apply some of the learnings from the old philosophies, such as the Bhagavad Gita, into our modern lives.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, help us understand your journey thus far and what made you get into this field in particular.
Thank you. Happy to. So I work in machine learning research in Google DeepMind, and my work is about exploring ideas to build efficient language models so we can
Mm,
understand language tasks much better. And then we use these models and techniques to build better tools and products that could help everyone. And to trace a little bit of my journey going all the way back to the beginning,
mm.
I first saw a computer in 1988
Aha.
and was instantly hooked.
Mm.
But truth be told, it was just video games and it was all about playing video games. But that got me interested more, and I eventually wanted to create my own video games. That led
Mm,
me to learning programming, and I just fell in love with the field, all of computer science. So I pursued a degree in engineering in South India in Shastra University.
mm.
And then I continued my learning with a master's degree at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh.
I
And
see.
after that degree, I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've been working here ever since as an engineer.
Mm,
And at early in my career, I started working in information retrieval, which is what is search engines, as we would call it, at various different companies.
mm,
And search engine is like this very interesting piece of technology because it involves working with multiple deep aspects of computer science, databases, huge amounts of data, data processing, distributed computing, and of
mm,
course, natural language processing, which is
mm,
my current field of work. So as I progress in my career, I had to do more and more researchy type of work to keep up with the field and the
mm.
evolving of search engine. And that kind of led me to a full-time job of research eventually. So there's this
I,
Japanese concept called ikigai, which is
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the reason for being.
Mm,
But I saw this nice infographic that has this four circles doing an intersection of a Venn diagram, what
mm,
you are good at, what you want to do, what the world
mm,
wants, and what the world
mm,
will pay for. So I kind
mm.
of consider myself very fortunate that I have been able to pick my career interests and also my learning and having fun all at the same time at different degrees to kind of place where I would say I am doing ikigai. So there.
Yeah, I love that infographic that you referenced, right? Um, So that actually leads me on to asking, like, what were some of your passions as a young adult, as a young boy, and then now as an adult? What are some of the passions that kept you going and that all lead into that ikigai mosaic that you just spoke about?
Uh, Good point. So all through my life, my favorite hobby is reading. But at some point, it went beyond a hobby. It kind of now consider it's a way of life. It's part of my life. I started reading in my school days, and it again started in a comical way with comics. So Phantom comics, Mandrake, Amar Chitra Katha, Tintin, whatever I could get my hands on, I would read all these books. And then eventually progressed to fiction and a lot of non-fiction. And then eventually read my most preferred genre is non-fiction with biography and philosophies. So I try to read 2, 3 books a week. And I listen to a lot of audiobooks too, because that helps me pass my time, commute time very efficiently and in a more enjoyable way. So that's my biggest passion.
Tell us a little bit about your inspirations along the way.
Uh, wow, how can I answer this loaded question? There's a character called Doc in the movie Back to the Future who says, I'm
Mm,
a student of all sciences, and I am a student of all sciences too. But to get to the point, of course, there's like all the all time favorites and everyone's favorites: Benjamin Franklin, Steve Jobs, Einstein, Feynman,
mm,
Johann Sebastian Bach,
mm,
Newton, and Ramanujan, Marie Curie. I could keep on going, but I will leave all those things and maybe pick few that I would like to highlight. Three of them.
mm,
So one is Gregor Mendel. He's considered the father of genetics. I recently read a book, The Monk in the Garden. This is
mm,
his biography about his highlighting his work ethic of meticulously performing dozens and dozens of experiments for many decades,
mm,
trying out various hypotheses and noting down the results. I thought it was very appealing to me.
mm,
And then the next one is Caitlin Carrico. And
mm,
I read her autobiography, Breaking Through. Of course,
mm,
she's now super famous. She's a Nobel laureate.
mm,
And we would all recognize her for discovering the mRNA vaccine technique, which
mm,
helped curb COVID. But her story for the 3, 4 decades before that breakthrough,
mm.
relentless pursuit for the love of science, that was deeply moving to me. And then the
Nice.
third person I would highlight is Professor Herbert Simon. I
Mm,
was fortunate just to sit in one or two of his lectures at CMU. He's
mm,
a Nobel laureate in economics, and
mm,
his work was on how do humans make decisions. It's all in decisions making.
mm,
And not only the Nobel laureate in economics, he also
mm.
won the Turing Award in computer science
Wow.
for
Okay.
being a pioneer in the field of artificial intelligence. And he
Mm,
also won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the
mm,
American Psychological Association. And he knows half a dozen languages. He's a pianist, he's a chess master, and
mm.
all stems from his love of figuring out decision making. So
Nice,
that's my
nice.
other
A
hero.
lot of inspirations along the way. Yeah. And here specifically, I think I'd like to let our listeners know you're lovingly called Krishna too, right? Like Krishna Paramatma and then Krishna too, because of your love for Bhagavad Gita in particular. So tell us a little bit about your journey to the Bhagavad Gita itself. Like what led you to it? Many of us know about it, but not many of us delve into it deeply. So please help us understand a little bit about that.
Um, sure. So, growing up as a Hindu, and of course in India, I also kind of heard about Bhagavad Gita, heard a lot of the stories, Mahabharata, and everything. But I only read it once, and then also I took away only some superficial highlights from it and
Mm,
completely forgot about it for a long time. And then many years ago, I listened to one of the great courses series called 36 Books That Change the World, and
mm,
Bhagavad Gita was there. And then
mm,
shortly after, I was reading a philosophy course called The Meaning of Life.
mm,
And this is a course of 36 lectures that cover different philosophies.
mm,
It goes all the way, it starts with Bhagavad Gita, then there's the book of Job from the Bible, there's
mm,
Tao Te Ching, Zen Buddhism from the Buddhist fields, and then going all the way to Immanuel Kant, Nietzsche, and continues all the way even to the modern times, like Tolstoy's Death of Ivan Ilyich philosophy and Gandhi and the Dalai Lama. And this kind of reinvigoration, seeing Bhagavad Gita again come up,
mm,
this time I kind of got deep into it, reading a few books that I already had. And this
mm.
time I was hooked. Probably I was much better prepared and ready. So when the
Mm.
student is ready, the teacher appears.
Teacher
So
appears.
I kind of got much more deeper into Vedanta and the various books related, the Upanishads, and started reading and got a much more deeper understanding of the Bhagavad Gita.
So, Krishna, we briefly spoke about, how you live your life as an AI researcher in the front lines, cutting edge, and all of that, but apply your wisdoms from one of the oldest texts, the Bhagavad Gita. In a few minutes, can you help us sort of summarize what are some of the learnings from the Bhagavad Gita that can be applied to our modern lives as we live our day-to-day lives?
Very happy to. A big task, but I'll give it my best shot. So, the Bhagavad Gita is a philosophy of life, and it
Mm,
speaks to each one of us. To the same reader, as they read it many times, each different time, some new
mm,
message crops up and appeals to us. So, while
mm,
there are many important teachings and facets, I will highlight three or four short points that,
mm.
even with the secular view set, that we would be able to apply to our daily life. So, the first
Okay.
thing that comes to me is this short phrase,
Mm,
Uddare Atmana Atmanam. So,
mm,
which says one has to lift oneself by their
mm,
own, on their own. So, here is this
mm,
religious work, but the Lord Krishna says you have to help yourself. And
mm,
that is like very obvious from the Bhagavad Gita book itself, because Krishna only gives all the advice and the lecture, but it
mm,
is up to Arjuna to understand it, grok it, and then
mm.
apply it, and then take the correct action based on his understanding. So, that's lesson one.
One.
We
Yeah.
help ourselves, we pay importance to self confidence.
Mm,
The second one I would say is from this phrase,
mm,
Samatvam Yoga Uchyate, to
mm,
develop an equanimous mind. The
mm,
more calm and composed we are, the better
mm,
we are taking decisions at each and every moment and situation, and we respond better rather than quickly react. So it
mm,
helps us not only in our day to day interactions with everyone, but
mm,
also in all the tasks that we do. What psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi would call as flow,
mm,
where you're doing a work where the work becomes its own reward, and so we are
mm,
able to do it with such joy and perfection and to the
mm,
best of our abilities. So I think
mm,
that would be my highlight too.
mm,
And then for the next one,
mm,
probably this phrase,
mm,
Yoma Pashyati Sarvatra. The
mm,
one who has an equanimous view towards all living things, all human beings, and
mm,
not have this artificial division based on caste, race, gender, religion,
mm,
country, and so on. Instead,
mm,
if we all love each other as just because we are all humans and we are all living things, that
mm,
would lead to a much better, joyous life. So that's point three. And I
mm,
have one more, which is again, I think, a very practical lesson that we can apply, and that would
mm,
be this phrase, Anudvekakaram Vakyam Satyam Priyahitam. So,
mm,
in short, it says, whatever you speak, make sure four conditions are fulfilled.
mm,
One, it is not hurtful. Two,
mm,
the truth.
mm,
Three, it's in very pleasant language. And
mm,
four, it is useful. So these four
mm,
conditions that we are always supposed to remember when we are speaking something. So the same message is also conveyed in a Tirukural. இனிய
mm,
உலகாக இன்னாத கூறல் கனியிருப்ப காய் கவர்ந்தற்று. So why would
mm,
you want to pick a unripe fruit when there
mm,
is ripe fruit available? So why would
mm,
you want to pick a suboptimal, hurtful, non-truthful statement when you
mm.
can say something pleasant that is true and that is helpful to others in a loving way? So that's the short message. So these four would probably be some things that I can connect from the ancient book, but to
Mm.
modern day for daily life for all situations.
Wonderful answer. So, to summarize, you're saying develop self confidence, develop an equanimous mind, learn to love everyone, and learn to speak mindfully and lovingly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautifully summarized. Yeah.
For somebody who's trying to get started on this journey, if they're interested to learn a little bit more about the Bhagavad Gita, what would you recommend? Because it can be an ocean, people spend years, sometimes decades trying to glean the meaning from it, and it can all feel a little bit overwhelming. So any suggestions as to how to get started and how to dip our toes into it?
Absolutely. And you said it very rightly. It is indeed an ocean. There are hundreds and hundreds of books on this. There
Mm,
are translations, there's translation plus commentaries, and then
mm,
there is sub commentaries and so on. By far, the first, I would probably like to have some prerequisites for someone starting the journey is to kind of have an open mind. The
mm,
Bhagavad Gita itself, there's a word that says anasuya, means
mm,
don't have this fault finding mind when you start reading a book.
mm,
It's a philosophy that's existed for thousands of years, helped millions of people. So
mm,
reading it with an open mind would be good.
mm,
And on that, generally what I find is there are like two kind of obstacles. So one, there are these people who attack it from the intellectual side. Hey,
Mm,
I know English, I know literature, I can read this translation. And no, you cannot just, if it's a simple translation, you cannot understand from it.
mm,
Because, for example, even the simplest of words that we think we know, like
mm,
yoga, karma, bhakti, samadhi, these all
mm,
have like half a dozen to a dozen different meanings that should be
mhm,
taken in different contexts. So there
mm,
is first that.
mm,
And then there's the other obstacle where folks think, oh, this is a religious book. That's it. All religion is out. I'm not going to touch this at all. And that's like kind of dismissing a philosophy, dismissing history.
mm,
And so that again does not help. Like there are amazing stuff in it that you can still take it out
mm,
by keeping out the religious bias of this book.
mm,
So, with that caveat, I
mm,
would give some of the books that I recommend to my dear friends.
mm,
And here are a few of them. So,
mm,
one I would say for starters is Bhagavad Gita by Eknath Ishwaran. And this
mm,
is a nice, concise book that gives a very high level view of the Gita and the various chapters and
mm,
what the teaching is about.
mm,
And then I would recommend progress to the Holy Gita by Swami Chinmayananda, which
mm,
expands on it a little bit, goes a little bit more into Advaita Vedanta, and
mm,
gives that background of the teaching in connection to the rest of the works in Vedanta.
mm,
And along the same lines would be this book called Thus Spake Krishna by
mm,
Professor V. Krishnamurti. It's like
mm,
this amazing book, again, not only gives a translation and a commentary, but it also collates various different topics into themes and how the various chapters and shlokas and verses connect with each other and how
mm,
the flow is. So, which I thought is like extremely beautifully presented. And that would
mm,
be super useful. And
mm,
then, apart from these three, there is a book,
mm,
Bhagavad Gita, a biography by
mm,
Professor Richard Davis. It's
mm,
published by Princeton Press,
mm,
and he actually traces the biography of the book itself, how it originated in ancient India, how it traveled across various countries and languages to
mm,
the form that we have today. So, this would be my recommended resources for somebody to get started on the Bhagavad Gita journey. But
mm.
beyond that, if somebody wants to get more serious, then they would pick their philosophy within Hinduism itself. There's various philosophies. They would pick a particular guru, and then they
Mm.
would kind of learn all of it in a very systematic, consistent way for a length of time from the same guru. That would probably be the best way to learn. But this will all kind of eventually guide somebody to that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you. So, Krishna, we move on to the part of our podcast that I like to call Finding Infinity and Beyond, which was amazing given the way our discussion thus far has gone, right? You've taught us so many things to apply from the Bhagavad Gita into our thing. And, it makes you think that there truly is an infinity within ourselves, and we each have to find out what it is that makes a successful life for us, right? For each of that can mean different things. For there are as many versions of success as there are personalities themselves. you know so given that, what are some of the things that you would recommend to have a successful life?
Great question. And I love the phrase finding infinity and beyond, reminded of Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story, one of my favorite movies.
Thanks.
And you said it rightly. Each one of us have our own definition. So I'll just give my definition of what I am doing to have a successful life.
Mm,
So I'm reminded of this quote by Dr. Wayne Dyer. It
mm,
goes like, watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words,
mm,
they become actions. Watch your actions, they become your character. Watch your character, they become your destiny. So I
mm,
believe it's like in taking care of the simple things on a daily basis and doing
mm,
it very well to the best of our abilities. And that kind of takes care of the long term automatically. But if we were to even more summarize that, probably the
mm,
catchphrase from Benjamin Franklin, healthy,
mm.
wealthy, and wise. And if we
Nice.
focus on each one of those components, we could
Mm,
do either at like an individual level personally for us, but
mm,
we could also zoom out and then do it on a much bigger level. And the more people we can serve and help, the more people life we can make joyous,
mm.
happier, the better. So that I think would be a successful life.
So, Krishna, I really like the healthy, wealthy, and wise. In your dictionary, what are some of the pursuits that we'll have to develop in order to lead a successful life, like you said?
Great. So we'll take exactly the same phrase, but in reverse order.
Mm,
So to look at the angle from voice,
mm,
I've talked non-stop about reading thus far. So that's
mm,
by far top of my list. It's an amazing meta skill that we all should have and cultivate. And that, like, one everyone wants to do, but I think everyone should also do. And we
Mm,
are capable of it. So why not leverage the wisdom of thousands and thousands of people who have lived across the centuries and millennia, and they have
mm,
poured all their wisdom out? Why not learn from all those things? And it's also looking at different ways of thinking. So I think reading by far is the number one thing that I'll recommend. Um, Going down, the next one would be healthy.
mm,
It's a huge topic, but to simplify, I'll just recommend one activity along the lines of indulge in a walk or a run
mm,
or a hike or something, anything kind of an outdoor activity.
mm,
One that kind of gets us away from the screens in modern lives, it just pervades all through our life. So, one that, but
mm,
also we get fresh air, sunlight, and then there's the connection with the nature.
mm,
So, that's the healthy part.
mm.
And for the wealthy, an equally big, broad topic, I
Yeah.
would just summarize it as start as early as possible, invest in a very broad market, whole market index, and let
Mm,
compound interest do its magic. It's one of
mm.
the most powerful forces. The earlier you start and let compound interest do the trick, nothing can beat that. So that is what I would recommend.
We live in a lovely society, but there are a lot of things to change. Humanity has come a long way, but we have a long way to go. And so, my question to you is, in your micro society and in your macro society, what are some of the things that you really like and that appeals to you?
Beautiful
And
question.
then we'll move to what it is that you would like to fix, right? Yeah.
Thanks, Saumya. Great question. I agree. So the micro society, I find that overall people are really very helpful. They want to cooperate. They like to form like-minded groups. They want to share, partake in discussions and activities. And I see this like either from the workplace and small projects or teams to the housing communities we live in, or even amongst our social circles like in WhatsApp or Facebook groups, to activities, hobbies like running, hiking, photography, and so on.
Mm,
So that's the micro society that I find fascinating. People are very helpful and friendly and loving. And then from the macro society angle, the modern world with all its technological advances and everything kind of gotten so advanced and complex that it
mm,
boggles my mind that no one person can truly know, even in their narrow field, all the things, how things fully work, where all the parts come from, how it fully operates.
mm,
But somehow at the various levels, like organizational level and also city, country, state type of levels,
mm.
that it all just comes together and works beautifully. So that fascinates me.
Krishna, so tell us, what is your version of utopia?
So, Soumya, I'll repeat like what you already said. We are already in utopia, but there is always things that we could make better.
Yeah.
So, probably my top list would be one, medical care for everyone
Mm,
across the world. The second one would be in education. Of
mm,
course, that's something everybody would agree on, but maybe my nitpick would be more along making reading and reading materials and books more available, education,
mm,
classrooms,
mm,
teachings, material, everything more available for
mm,
everyone. And then the third one would be getting rid of all the artificial boundaries that we created in the first
mm,
place: gender, caste, race, religion, country, all this kind of divisions.
mm,
And probably on a lighter note, I
mm,
would add one personal wish of mine
mm.
to have more liberal and an extended time for marathons, as I'm a very slow runner.
Oh, yes, granted. Granted, Krishna. But very nice list. And I think, a list that is good to aspire for, right? Like that's what many of us are aspiring for, and hopefully one day we'll get there.
Will do. Yep.
So thank you very much today, Krishna, for joining you. It was such a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you once again.
No, thank you very much, Soumya, for hosting me. I enjoyed the chat and the questions very, very much. And wishing you all the very best to interview as many stars as you can in the show, and hope it inspires all of us. Thank you.